Light it right, shoot it bold, and make it dynamic is our topic today on Luminar Coffee Break. Let's see what we can accomplish in 10 minutes or less, starting now. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Now, today's topic, again, last week, we polled our Luminar Coffee Break members, or Skylum insiders that are here during the Zoom session, and they came up with 8 topics for us to work with for the next 8 weeks. And this was one of the topics on how to actually use lighting. All right. So I'm going to show you this. Now, this is just one of many ways we could use lighting. Now, this is a different type of lighting setup. It's a 3-light setup. All right. And you'll see these 3 lights here. Now, I'm using this program called Set-A-Light mainly because you can see exactly what I'm doing. What I would love to do is a live session on lighting so you can see it firsthand. But this way you get to actually see it as if you were here in the studio looking through a camera. All right. So for a 3-light setup, what we're going to do is this. I need 2 lights to shape and sculpture the person. The 3rd light is going to be the beauty dish, and that, believe it or not, is the fill light. So let me give you a real quick terminology. You have key light, and then you have a fill light. The key light is just that. It's the light that does all the heavy lifting. That's your main light, the key light. The fill light fills in the shadows and helps sculpture. You would think in this scenario here, you would think that this beauty dish right here is the key light, but in reality, it's the fill light. Because watch this, I'm going to turn it off. Now, when I do this, ooh, look what happened over here to the guy, to the image. How cool is that? Look what the strip boxes are doing. The 2 strip boxes are throwing light to the side and it's sculpturing the person. So that technically is my key light because that's doing the heavy lifting. Now watch. When I throw in the octabox, now it's filling in the shadows. If I didn't use that, look what it did. Now watch this. If I shut these 2 off, look how it looks flat and dull. So again, I'm using these 2 strip boxes to be the key light. And then there's the octabox, which is going to be the fill light. Now that you understand how I did the lighting here, all right, let's talk about power. Now, if you're using battery strobes, or let's say those little flashes, if you're using battery power, you got to conserve it. Because if I'm shooting, let's say just for 10 minutes, no big deal. But if I'm going to photograph an entire day, I have to make sure those batteries don't die on me. And the easiest way they're going to die is by overusing the power. So watch this. If I'm going to zoom up a little bit higher so you can see it. All right. So these 2 key lights off to the side are using quarter power. The main light is using 1/8 power, which means these 2 lights coming in from the side are more powerful than that beauty dish. Now, let me back up for a moment. Most of you all of you already understand a proper exposure is combined of 3 things: ISO, shutter, and then, of course, your f-stop. So you have your aperture or your f-stop, your shutter, your ISO. There's 2 other missing variables that people don't talk about, and you experience them all the time. That's light to subject distance and the power of the light. When you're photographing landscapes, light to subject distance is that sun. And then the power of the sun is the time of day. So you don't think about it because those are 2 variables that you can't change. Well, obviously, you can wait till it's an overcast day. You can wait for the sun to go down. So you can control it like that, but most people don't think about it. The 5 variables, again, we already talked about the first 3. F-stop, shutter, ISO. Now the 2 extras, light to subject distance power the light. Now here's the key. Lock down 4 of those 5 variables. And again, this applies to landscape photography, for any type of photography, window light, you name it, lock down 4. In this case here, when we're doing this type of a shoot, I want my f-stop to be anywhere between, let's say, f4 to f8. So f4 is going to give me that depth of field that I'm looking for, but it's also going to help out with giving me the texture of the uniform. If I photographed it at 2.8, well then, if I focus, let's say, on the eye, everything is going to be nice, sharp, and then it's going to fade. The blur, the uniform, or in this case here, what he's wearing, is not going to be as sharp. So f4 is a good starting spot. I lock that down. My shutter, well, if I'm dealing with studio flash, the highest you want to go is 250th of a second. What the flash does, or what the shutter does, it doesn't affect the exposure. It affects the ambient light in the room. So again, shutter in this case deals with the ambient light. So what I like to do is when I get my camera all set, no lights on except for the overhead lights, take a picture. If it comes out pure black, boom, perfect. Then that means that interior light, the ambient light, has no effect whatsoever on this exposure. So again, that's the key. Keep that shutter speed. If you start to see a little shadow, increase the shutter speed, no higher than 250th of a second. Now ISO. That's going to dictate how much light I need. So with the new cameras nowadays, ISO isn't a big problem anymore. In the old days, we always started with ISO. Well, here's the thing, and Joe Edelman said it best. With the 3 exposure, with the 3 ingredients, choose your f-stop choose your shutter for purpose. What's the purpose? In this case here, I'm going to choose a shutter to get rid of that ambient light. If I'm photographing a waterfall, I'm going to lower that shutter speed for purpose because I want a nice silky waterfall. I don't want to capture every drop. I want it to look like it's flowing rapidly. All right. So choose your shutter for purpose, your aperture for art or for feeling, and then your ISO for light. So those are the 3. The old exposure triangle, that's outdated. That used to be great for the film days. It was the ISO is the sensitivity of the light to the film. We're not dealing with film anymore. We're dealing with an image sensor, and that's frequency. So ISO, we could afford to go with a higher ISO. In this case here, I think I'm shooting 400 ISO. Roughly, here it is. Yep, 400 ISO. You can see it right up here. Let me zoom in. There you go. So I'm shooting f-stop 120 or 1/200th of a second, f4 4.0, ISO 400. All right. So I locked that down. Light to subject distance. Well, once I set those lights up, I don't want to keep moving them, and I don't want to make my assistant to keep moving them. So we set the light, they stay. Then we set the power of the light, in this case, 1/4 power to conserve battery, 1/8 power for that beauty dish. Now, how do I know what the settings are? That's where a light meter comes in. So with a light meter, I'm going to dial in 2 of those 3 settings because we already said we're not going to move the lights. We're not going to change the power. So those 2 of the 5 are locked in. So we say, all right, I want ISO 400 and my shutter speed to be 200th of a second. I lock that in, click the button, it'll come back and tell me what the f-stop should be. If the f-stop isn't 4.0, let's say the f-stop comes back as at f8, that means I have a lot of light in the image. Now I can make a decision. I have too much light. I can either shoot at f8, but that's not what I want. I could lower my ISO so I'm not letting in that much light. Take another reading. I look and let's say it's 5.6. It's still not where I want it to be. Now I have a couple of choices. I could, which is a pain, move the lights away from the subject. Remember, light to subject distance. If I move them away, it'll make the light less powerful. I can lower the power on the light. There's a lot of options. In this case, I'd rather do it from the camera. So if I still don't have what I need, in this case here, ISO is down as low as I can be. My shutter speed isn't going to make a difference because that's just killing the ambient light. Now, unfortunately, I either have to go to the cameras or to the power of the light and bring the light down just a bit until I get that magic number. So it's not as complicated as you think. The easiest, most simplest thing to do when you're first starting out, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack from a lot of the pros, put the flash in TTL, auto mode, through the lens. Let it figure out light to subject distance. Let it figure out what the power of the light should be, and then you deal with the other three objects. Take your pictures. You like what you see? Make a note. Say, this looks perfect. I love it. Jot it down. Look at what the TTL did to the power of the light, because you're not moving the lights. So if you look in this case, you came back and said you only used 1/16th power, make a mental note of that. Or at that point, put it in manual mode, 1/16th, and then take the picture again, and you'll see it comes out perfect. That is a great way to learn. And you've heard me say this with new photographers. Put the camera in auto mode. Just take your pictures. Look at what the metadata says. Then you could dial it in manually and continue. This will help you learn. It'll help you be creative, and it helps you not to think technical when you're photographing. All right? So 5 elements: light to subject distance, power of the light, and then the 3 we talked about: ISO, shutter, f-stop. The light source that we talked about, it's right here again. I'll show you one more time. Look at this. We're using these 2 strip boxes, hide this one, to sculpture the person's face. And then, in fact, I'll show you all of it is off. Then there's that beauty dish, the octabox. Here. And by the way, make sure that when you do set the lights up, put them about a 45-degree angle, right up above. You want to make sure that you still see the catch lights in the eye. If it's too high, you'll get dark patches under the eyes, and the eyes themselves won't have a catch light in them. They look dead. If it's too low, especially someone like me with a nose, you're going to make my nose look huge. So bring the light up just a bit to where when it's coming in, you'll get those beautiful catch lights in the eyes. All right? Now, that's how we're lighting. This is a unique light. We want a dynamic photo. We want a very, very powerful photo. So to get it, I need harsh light, and that's going to give us strong shadows. Harsh light, strong shadows. Now watch what the editing is going to do. All right? So I'm going to jump right into Luminar. Now, I've used this lighting setup. We were at a TNF workshop. Look, I used a lighting setup for this, and then, of course, a long time ago, when was this taken? 2017. So here's my buddy Garrett. This was start of the whole dynamic look. So because we have these harsh lights, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to come down to my favorite tool right here, and that's my dramatic tool. Look at this. This is what started my sports grit look. I'm going to dial in just a bit. And there we go. Now, I'm getting the note, what I like here, but I'm going to jump down here to my portrait tools. And now I'm going to bounce light onto his face. Ooh, there it is. Look at that. And then I might as well, while I'm here, make the eyes look really, really. Now I know Garrett has like blue eyes. So I might as well stick with blue. I'm going to dial it back a bit. Add a little more flare, catch light underneath. And let's enhance the eyes. Here we are. Oh, look at that. Before, after, huge difference. Now I'm going to go back to my dramatic tool. By the way, edits, think of that as history. So let's come over here to dramatic. Now we have to make a decision. Do I want to be a little more saturated, a little more color into it? I like it right about there. Let's see the results. And there we have it. All right. I'll do the same thing to the firemen. Now, once again, now you could start, in this case here, doing just the typical editing, saying, okay, you know what? Let's just start with typical development. All right, there we go. Before, after, good. I would rather the background be a little bit darker, but for now, let's just do this. In fact, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Right there. All right? Now, let's go back to the dramatic tool. Crank up the amount. Ooh, look what it's doing to that smoke. And then I do want to saturate a little bit more with that brightness. I want to bring it back. Here we go. Because I still want it to look. I still want it to look like a portrait. Just enough to make it look the way I want. All right. Now, in a case like this, again, let's go back to the face. And fill a little light into it right about there. And while I'm at it, I might as well look at these highlights. So right now, they're not blown. That right here, you can see what I clicked on the histogram. Look at that. I'm going to bring those highlights down. And these black points here, that really doesn't bother me. If it does bother you, you could bring them out a little bit more here. But you know what? Or just lift the shadows a little bit. But those areas are not going to affect the image, so I'm going to leave it. And last but not least, I should have done this in camera. Let's get rid of this. I should have moved the light source just a little bit higher, because notice how his bottom half is lit. Well, watch what we're going to do here. I'm going to bring it in. Now I'm going to use a linear gradient and only apply that darkness to the bottom. There we go. A little less, right about there. And you know what? If you want to use a vignette, let's jump in here. There we go. And pop a little inner light. Nice. And let's see the beginning. So from this to this, and I hope you're like me, watch this. There it is. That, I just loved it. I just love the way that is. If you wanted to get a little fancier, you could come in with film grain just to make it look a little older, a little more traditional. With the black and white, that's a little too much. Right about there. There we have it. Before and after. All right? So, I hope that was educational for you, to where you don't have to be scared about using Flash. When I first started using Flash, just like everyone else, I went out and I bought the most expensive Nikon Flash unit, took a photo, it looked horrible, put it back in my camera bag, stuck it in the closet, didn't use it for the longest time until close friends of mine taught me not to be scared of the Flash. And that simple trick, TTL, they put it in auto and said, Vanelli, take a picture. Click. Oh, wow, that looks great. Well, how'd you do it? Just put it in auto mode, get it to where you start to understand what light is doing. Once you capture that, then you can go to manual mode. That's entirely up to you. There are many pros that are world famous that swear and use the TTL method. They love it. And they use camera, the exposure compensation and the flash compensation on the lens itself or the camera itself. Whatever you decide to do, just remember the 5 elements. Lock 4 of the 5 down. Once you have that, everything will flow. All right? So, by the way, we do have a couple things I wanted to share with you. Like we said before, if you didn't join the Facebook group, please use this link right here to come along and join us on the Facebook, on Facebook itself, where we have extra content that we'll be sharing there. Now, we're coming in, we're doing a workshop. There we are at TNF Camera. This is going to be in New Jersey. There's the link. If you want to learn more about what we just did, if you want to learn more about the lighting, that'll be the workshop that you want to go to. It'll be myself, Rick Freeman, Rick Farrell. Rick Freeman was the photographer who's photographed every president since Jimmy Carter. And then Rick Freeman, so that's Rick Freeman. Rick Farrell is the Disney photographer who does, hundreds and hundreds of $1,000 weddings at Disney. Both of those men together have an outrageous amount of knowledge when it comes to lighting for glamour and lighting for portraits. I'm coming in doing, especially with, look at this. How could you not love this? Especially with these nights, I'll be photographing a lot of my dramatic type lighting, and we've already have really cool ideas to where if we get rained, because this is going to be in the woods, we'll show you how to mimic everything we do in the woods into the studio or into your home and use digital backgrounds for your finished composites. All right. So that's happening coming up real soon. Check it out. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you're here, please stick around for the Ask Me Anything segment. For everyone else, I'll see you at the next coffee break.